Good afternoon. How's the energy level? I know, second day afternoon is always challenging. How many of you attended my session yesterday? You'll be glad to know I'm not going to repeat it. I will, however, recap a few of the elements, but I'll focus today on how we are helping the fixed line service, how we bring value to the CSPs in that area of space. But before that, I would like to answer a question I got during these days, which is, what does a solutions architect at AWS do with the telcos? And what we have is a group of experts, both with experience, telco experience and cloud experience, that understand both where you're coming from and where the cloud can bring you and help you on that journey. And that can be having a conversation at the higher level of what cloud is and what's the value of cloud, and go deeper into helping you gain the skills that you need and your teams need, or even help you review the architectures and bring you the right recommendations on how you can best use the cloud infrastructure. So I hope that answers some of the questions I got. Now, to recap something I explained yesterday, which is what is the cloud infrastructure? Now, this is a different slide, and instead of going from the core cloud, the region, to the edge, we go from the edge to the core. And one thing I would like to stress today is we've been hearing about cloud and cloud infrastructure and the fact that you have the elasticity of accessing compute resources. Some people think of cloud as compute resource like virtual machines and storage, and that's it. And you just have those at your disposal across the edge to the cloud. However, at AWS, we actually provide more than 200 services as cloud services. So the cloud today is more than just that virtualized infrastructure. Goes into a number of services, managed services, that span across networking capabilities, data ingestion and processing, AI and machine learning, IoT, and so on. And that's the element that is important when we're working with our customers, is to understand what they're trying to achieve and how we can provide the right tools. We've also heard many times cloud native, and how do you build or develop cloud-native applications. The telco industry is coming from an appliance type of approach and evolving into cloud-native. So one of the elements of cloud-native is the ability to break application components into pieces and then figure out where you should be running those components across the infrastructure. When you think cloud and you think elasticity, when I talk about 200 services, you have access to the highest elasticity and a number of services in the core of the cloud infrastructure. As you go towards the end, the compute resources start to get smaller, and obviously you have less of those capabilities. That's what's important to determine where you're going to run those components. So at the edge of the cloud, you typically ingest data, process data, and then upload to the main cloud that already pre-processed data. You're not going to do machine learning at the edge of the cloud. Not that you couldn't do, but you're going to be using a limited set of resources, which might not be the most appropriate in terms of capacity and cost. So in ensuring that as those cloud-native applications get built or developed, is to use the right level of services across this cloud continuum. This is also a recap. Where are we helping the telcos currently? Yesterday focused a bit more in terms of examples where we're helping cloudifying the infrastructure and how to automate operations. Today I'm going to be talking a bit more of how we're helping with the data and monetizing the data that the telcos are collecting, and also how to accelerate some of the service revenues. Now, there's one interesting topic, and also my experience, long experience in telco, that everyone keeps talking about, which is how do you actually handle all of the data that you're collecting? And I'm sure that many of you have been in those discussions or even tried to solve the problem. And the reality is that telcos do produce a lot of data or collect data, both from the network as well as from information related to subscribers or devices, and have been spending a lot of money on systems to store that data and attempt to process. However, reality is that there are still what we call data silos. There are a number of tools that have been developed and implemented that can take care of data in one domain, collect the data, process the data, and expose that data or create insights out of that data. However, when you look at the broader value of data and try to combine those elements, that's very difficult because everything is pretty much physical infrastructure and contained in silos. An example is everyone is looking at what's the best way of predicting churn. And then you look into your customer data and try to look at the customer sentiment and predict the churn. What if the customer is not happy because there's problems with the network performance? Or what if the customer is not complaining and you're not taking into consideration the network data for that? So bringing that data together has been one of the biggest challenges, and this is one of the areas that we help telcos achieve that, both in terms of removing the need to manage that infrastructure, physical infrastructure that needs to continue to evolve. So you have the cloud storage and capabilities to store that data and scale as far as needed. But you also have the tools that we're providing so that you create what we call a data lake. And a data lake for us is a way to catalog the data that you have in various tools, not necessarily to migrate all the data to a central place and then take care of that, because there are tools that are existing, databases and all sorts of other tools that collect data. And with the data lake, we provide those connectors for those various tools. We provide the ability to catalog in a simpler way, and this will create the ability to separate the data production from the data consumption, and do that in a structured and secured way. So those are some of the tools that we bring. To give you an example, Telia is one of our customers that we've been working with them to help them in that journey. And exactly the first step that they're doing with us is modernizing the data infrastructure, is building that data lake and make sure that they have access to all of the data through a consistent way of accessing it. The second is liberating that data. What I mentioned, the separation between data creation and consumption. Once the data creators are connected to the data lake, then the data consumption can be done by all sorts of various teams without having to go through the siloed tools that exist nowadays. But that requires some upskilling, some training. And this is also where we're helping. We're helping them structure the data, catalog the data, and then also help their developers understand how they can access the data and what are the APIs and tools that we provide for them to do that. And then the third step is what you can do on top of that data. And we all heard AI, ML, and this is really the topic. So the more data you have, the better it is for AI, ML tools to work on that data and produce those insights. Now, I do have experience on AI and ML. As was mentioned, that was what I did in my previous organization. And one of the things that I realized, and many people don't, is that in order to get to the AI, ML phase of bringing value from the data, you do need to structure the data. Unstructured data will provide unstructured or unuseful insights. So this is why we go with this three-step phase with Telia. Another example is with BT. And this is really on the fixed access, where BT is also looking to improve their customer experience. For that, not only they want to understand how their devices that are at the home of their customers are performing, but they also wanted to provide that information to the customers themselves. So they're using some of our IoT capabilities where we provide the tools that they can use to manage those devices, to deploy, build in an easy way those small applications to probe the network, to benchmark the network, in this case in terms of the speed tests, and then push that information and stream that information directly, not just to their own network operations teams, but also directly to their customers. And the services that we're using here are some of those 200+ services that we have that make it very easy to build this type of applications without a lot of knowledge in terms of software development, because most of the components are already provided by us, managed, and then it's very easy to build this type of solutions on top of it. Gaming. And I know because I have a son, he's 19 years old, and the gaming has been in his DNA for many years. I think that many of us have that experience. Either we are gamers and don't want to admit it, or our children are gamers and we start to realize how important this industry is. And this is an area where latency and the consistency of service is very important. At AWS, we work very closely with the gaming industry. There's some of the companies out there that run actually their online games and multiplayer games on our infrastructure. But in this specific case, with Riot Games, they launched a new game which required a level of consistency that they realized was not possible out of the cloud infrastructure. So they worked with us and with one of our CSP partners to create an infrastructure that would serve their needs. And that consisted on outposts, so using outposts that were delivered to the CSP infrastructure close to the locations that they knew were underserved, and that allowed them to provide a consistent launch of the game across regions that most likely would not perform as they would like. So this is another example where we're not only helping the CSPs in terms of looking at their infrastructure, but also helping the CSPs in connection to their customers and create a solution that is beneficial for both and provide the right level of experience for the end users, the gamers. So in summary, before the summary, streaming. This is another important revenue generation element of CSPs. Some of you have your IPTV solutions, we all know that the streaming companies are out there are also going into that space. An example is Netflix. So Netflix is a company that runs their infrastructure on AWS, both in terms of processing and distributing their streaming services, as well as with all of their backend. And they're running more than 100,000 servers or virtual instances on our cloud. Another service is Prime Video, and this is an Amazon service. And this is also a good example of how we're working with multiple partners. And there was someone that mentioned cooperation. So we have a business unit, which is Prime Video. And by the way, AWS is a different business unit. Amazon has different business units. So Prime Video is a customer to us, the same way that Netflix, or in this case, Telefonica, or others are to us. And we're building solutions that support all of them. With the Prime Video, like with other services that we have, Alexa being another business unit, we've been working with CSPs on how they can use and integrate our content into their offering. You might have seen in Europe some of the CSPs' TV offering to start including Prime Video. And this is one way that we partner, where we bring some of our other business units into play and help enrich the content and the services that you can provide. Telefonica, we work with them so that they would build an additional service on top of their TV service that will enable their customers from the TV to access Amazon content and search products and be able to order. So this one is a public reference in that sense. I can tell you that, because I mentioned Alexa, that we've also been working with CSPs to integrate Alexa into their IPTV experience. We're also doing with other industries like automotive. There are announced partnerships bringing Alexa into the automotive industry. So these are areas where beyond AWS, we are bringing some additional value and working with the CSPs on producing more content and more services. And now to conclude, so on one side, we're providing that seamless platform from edge to core of cloud infrastructure that have similar services and ways of accessing APIs and tools. This is something that we know from the development community that is important, that consistency. And then we're working with telcos, CSPs, as well as their partners, software vendors, network vendors, to port those applications into this seamless environment. We are reimagining the customer experience by enabling a better way of using your data, building the data lakes and helping with AI, ML tools. Gaming is an example of enhancing the network experience for the end consumer, and now we can bring the additional elements that provide the expected performance from those users. And then lastly, how can we help the fixed network CSPs unlock growth by collaborating in areas where we can bring additional either content or applications that they can build on top of existing propositions. And this is what I had to share with you. Happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you very much.